All right, so ETF Super Bowl might be upon us. We're going to be breaking down what the ETF probability is today in today's video, and really what will be the scenario that plays out, because there's a lot of different working parts that hopefully we'll be able to break down for you guys and give you some insights on all that good stuff. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into Tech Path. Before we get started, if you guys are not part of our Diamond Circle, jump in. Now, we actually have 3 different ways that you can get into our programs. You can get in as a free member just with Diamond Circle. You can jump into our Crypto Power Index where we do a little additional analysis. That's where you get our charts, all of our stuff on our tokens. And then you can also get into our direct mastermind group where we do a lot of research, additional data, and we also do immediate drops anytime we do an update for our CPI. So early access to other aspects only for members, including early videos and podcasts. So check it all out. You guys might make sense for you. I want to jump over to a few tweets here. We will be taking some questions, so make sure and drop a few over there on the comment side. We'll try to get to as many as we can at the end, and we'll try to maybe look at some charts before the day is over as well. James Seyfert. James has been on our show before. This is one of the Bloomberg analysts that breaks down ETFs. And here's his statement. We have at least 6 decision letters coming in from the SEC this week on spot Bitcoin ETF applications, likely tomorrow. What are the letters going to say? This is 77% saying we're going to see a delay. Now, remember, the Grayscale case recently, just now this week, won to an extent. The amount of slam down that this judge has put upon the SEC, I don't know if they're licking their wounds, if they would look at maybe more of a strategic approach on this, but I mean, I feel like there's a possibility we still could get an approval. At the same time, it's almost one of those things where would the SEC do this with this most recent loss that they just came off of against Grayscale? I think that's the big question right now. There are some other, experts out there kind of talking about this, the odds of a spot Bitcoin ETF. This is more of a overall odds for, just in general. I don't think they give timelines here, but it's 80-20 and increasing. This is the CEO of Marathon Mining, who I would say is pretty much in on the understanding of what's happening in the DC landscape and also in the regulatory landscape that frames up how the SEC behaves. Because remember, this is one of those things. A lot of people I don't necessarily think they realize that all of what our regulatory bodies do in DC is essentially translate what Congress and the laws are for the land. And that's the overreach that has been occurring. And that's why we're seeing so much pushback, so many issues that are, of course, rising up within the ranks of our regulatory and lawmakers where they just don't like what Gensler has been up to. Here was Watcher Guru kind of reporting on that Grayscale is now closer to a spot Bitcoin ETF more than ever, winning its lawsuit against the SEC. This is a clip I'm going to play for you guys real quick. Let's just pop to this clip.
Now, after the U.S. court sort of gave you some runway to be able to launch a spot Bitcoin ETF, what do you do now? Yeah, so thank you so much for having me. Let's be clear about yesterday. So yesterday was the culmination of more than a year worth of litigation. The SEC denied GBTC's conversion to an ETF. We immediately filed a lawsuit. 14 months later now, we finally got a decision from the DC Circuit, and a panel of 3 judges unanimously voted and agreed with Grayscale, and that actually vacates the SEC denial order. Huge win for Grayscale, huge win for our investors, and really the crypto and investment community as a whole. But there's a process here to the point that you're making, and there is a chance that the SEC looks to broaden this out, potentially fight the decision, bring this in front of a larger array of judges. And so if you're thinking about that potential process ahead, do you have any concerns that the race to bring an ETF to the market will leave you behind? Well, so today is day 1 of a 45-day period during which the SEC has the ability to request a rehearing. Ultimately, at the end of that 45-day process, you could expect a final mandate from the court with operational next steps. Now, of course, in the interim, our attorneys are going to be working proactively with the SEC to try and make this conversion as expeditious as possible.
All right, so what Grayscale is basically saying there is, yeah, the answer is yes to that question in the sense that they are going to be feeling left behind. They have a 45-day window, which is kind of interesting here in terms of timing. when you look at the Grayscale Trust, remember they own a large amount of Bitcoin, and you look at what Blackrock, Fidelity, Van Eck, etc. are in the wings waiting to fire on all cylinders, and you can imagine the amount of marketing that's going to go into it. Now, if we do get a push forward, let's say it's just a delay this week, I don't know that we'll, and it's very possible that the market dump right now that we're seeing on Bitcoin could be anticipating that, and that's possible. But the real question is when would a actual approval get done? And I think that's the big question that a lot of people are continuing to analyze. And I think it also boils down to whether or not we will see much of a market pump. Because if you look at the Grayscale win, you would have thought that there might have been a bigger indicator there, at least from the market. It wasn't a massive move. We were talking less than 10% in terms of Bitcoin and Ethereum. But I think the scenario now that we're facing is that has almost bled off just in a very short period of time. So whether it's manipulation, just market slippage and dumping is kind of typical of these kind of scenarios when we get these news breaks like this. So another video that I thought was interesting, there's a couple of parts of this clip I want to show you. Let me start with the beginning first. Yeah, we're at the beginning here. Let's go here first.
This is certainly a huge win, not just for Grayscale, but the broader crypto community, and a huge loss for the SEC, a huge embarrassment, I should say. But no, a Bitcoin ETF is really important for a couple of reasons. It provides an easy, regulated product for those investors who don't want to deal with self-custody or deal with a separate platform like Coinbase or Kraken to have exposure to Bitcoin. If you think about it, Bitcoin is a lot like gold. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin. It is a scarce digital asset. And this provides a safe way for institutions and additional individuals to get access to owning Bitcoin. So we're very excited. It certainly doesn't mean it's going to happen immediately, but it helps clear the way for the approval of hopefully not just one, but many ETF applications
All right, so many applications, and let me scrub it a little bit. There was another part right here where they get into something. Now, I'm going to pause it here because I want to zoom in on this really close. And I want to show you guys something that mainstream media is now starting to track Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana. Now, and remember, there's been some scenarios where Squawk Box and other mainstream media has started to drop off things like Litecoin, et cetera, that have been tracked in the past. You even have Dogecoin and XRP on here. But the point is that we're getting to a state right now that most likely if we see a Bitcoin, I shouldn't say if, when we see the Bitcoin ETF approval, my question is going to be, what is going to come next? Is it going to be an Ethereum, ETF? Do we potentially even see something going out next year, maybe in the area of a Solana ETF, dare I say? So this is an interesting aspect. But if you listen to what they talk about here, listen further into this clip. Let me play this part right here.
It's been fairly subdued. It's down this morning. To what extent will the availability of a spot ETF be able to overcome just the messiness and ugliness that's already out there, and can you bring big institutions back to Bitcoin after all that's happened with FTX and Binance?
Yeah, no, listen, I think the institutions want to come back and they want a safe way to do it. We've certainly had a rough year or 18 months in the crypto industry, so there's no denying that. But I think that 99% of the people who are working in this business are good people, and they want to do the right thing, and they want to comply with the laws. And I think what's really interesting is that over the past, 10 plus years, the crypto industry has really made a good faith effort to try to look at the laws, look at the regulations, look at the case law, and figure out how this new asset class fits within that construct. And what's interesting here is that the crypto industry and the lawyers who've worked in this space have had a lot of thoughts about how securities laws apply. And Gary Gensler has the opposite, very different interpretation of those laws. And so...
All right, so a couple of things here to point out is that there is a bit of a question mark as to whether or not there is going to be a major impact on the markets. And I would love to get your opinion on this. If we do get an approval, when, will it impact Bitcoin and the traditional crypto markets, most likely the blue chips, in a big way. What are your thoughts? Drop some comments down below. Let me know on the side chat. I'd love to kind of chat with you about that. Another thing right now is really one of the things you can do to help the channel out is smash the like button. It's one of the best ways that other people for the first time maybe are, because remember, when a Bitcoin ETF comes in, the likely start to affect people who have never invested in crypto before. So if you smash that like button right now, it's going to help other people start to discover what's happening out here in the crypto space. So make sure to do that. But the point is, do we get a real reaction, or do we get more of these kind of little subtle wins? I mean, when we had the XRP win, the market went up for a short minute. Then we have the scenario playing out here with Grayscale. Market goes up for a short minute. This would be major because it would be the first legitimate action to move into mainstream adoption. Real question is it in the right spot? When I say it, meaning Bitcoin primarily, and Ethereum to a certain extent, are they in the right spot for a lot of this institution money to say, that's where I'm going to buy in? I think that's the bigger question going forward here, because this is what will affect it. Main reason that the SEC has been using for the last decade to reject all these Bitcoin applications has been struck down. It's been taken off the table. This was in the scenario of the loss against Grayscale. And now you've got scenarios. This is 21 Shares CEO Rashwan says the outcome of the Grayscale case is incredibly positive. Now this again is 21 Shares. Granted,
from the Grayscale lawsuit is incredibly positive.
But you can kind of listen.
We still don't know precisely what it means, but the main reason that the SEC has been using for the last decade to reject all of these Bitcoin applications has been struck down, has been taken off the table. What will be really interesting.
All right, so what he's talking about, all the positions that the SEC had been taking struck down, completely out of the picture. So this is not just a loss. This is a resounding loss and embarrassment, as one of the commenters had stated it. And I think that's the case. Right now, the SEC is licking their wounds. They're trying to figure out politically, what does this mean for the office of the Securities and Exchange Commission? Because I think this now starts to put things in very interesting lenses and perspectives of how they go out and do litigation and enforcement within the rest of the crypto industry, because now they've taken significant losses across the bow. And I think now you're looking at that whole scenario of the SEC overreach that many politicians and lawmakers have already, said, hey, we're just not going to stand for it anymore. And this is kind of one of the things that's going to help us go forward. Again, the ETF will be a big part of this. Do they, though, take this as an opportunity, the SEC, and say, all right, this is our window to go ahead and take the heat off just a little bit and put out a spot ETF for Bitcoin and see how the market responds to it? Because it could always be one of those scenarios where it doesn't respond well and the SEC says, see, there was really no demand. So I don't know. This is going to be a very interesting time. Deaton has come in and said, hey, there's a chance that this is kind of moving on to the Coinbase situation right now, but there's a chance that the SEC lawsuit against Coinbase will be dismissed. If you followed our video yesterday, we actually showed there's a big connection to what happened in the Grayscale case with Judge Failla, because that judge, of course, is proceeding over the Coinbase case, and a lot of these kind of parameters of what these judges are basing all their decisions on is based on what is currently under law, meaning we've got governed laws that look at these kind of scenarios and say there's just no crime or there's no problem here with the way this company is trying to do business. So I think that is going to be the bigger scenario. Now, my question to you is this. If you had to say, hey, Paul, the one thing I think that's going to move the market, it could be an ETF. Could it be a Coinbase win or just a position where maybe the case gets dropped? Or could it be regulation? Those are the three things that are all coming to a head at the very same time. So I'd love to get your input. So drop some comments over on the side. Here was Bill Hughes. This was kind of interesting right here. So this is the Southern District of New York. Judge Failla also explicitly found in its August 29th decision in Risley versus Uniswap. This is the one that we just covered also. That was a big win for them, Uniswap. And because it was thrown out, And Ethereum, based on that, especially in the documents, court documents, Ethereum is not a commodity. This is a judge. It is basically one step away from the Supreme Court. So think about that. You've got this statement right here. Here we go. While no court has decided yet to issue the context of decentralized protocol smart contract, court finds that smart contracts here were themselves able to be carried out lawfully, and crypto commodities, ETH and Bitcoin, both included in that. So very, very interesting statements coming out of the judge's quarters. So a lot happening here. And the point that this makes is you've got a lot of things happening at the same time. Remember, Coinbase has launched Base, which is an ERC20 chain, and it is the capability, and the amount of movement that we've seen within that chain has been unbelievable. And then again, we've got other wins coming in, and also other things happening right now. In fact, we've got Pancake swap jumping into the game here. Here's a good example. Pancake, let me go to the headline here just to give you guys an example here. Pancake swap expands to the Coinbase incubated Ethereum layer 2. And if you look at this statement right here, they're the second largest decentralized exchange. Now they've launched on Base. The Coinbase now has incubated Ethereum layer 2 scaling network as it continues its multi-chain expansion. Now this means it's the second major, and this is going to be huge. Again, this is big for Ethereum if you look at this overall. Again, I think we're really in the wings of possibly seeing some other actions. Remember, there's ETH, ETFs already, not spot ETFs, but speculated ETFs already in play, and the likelihood of seeing a spot ETF may be reality here soon. And of course, you've got all this movement right now, and of course, the Uniswap win, along with many other things coming into it. The other thing that's coming into this is Ethereum's value grows with network usage. This is coming off of a Fidelity report. And Fidelity, if you don't know the story behind Fidelity, this is an interesting company. Remember that they've been not a public trade, a family-owned company forever. And this is always, the CEO of the Fidelity was the grandfather now, and then or grandfather running it, who founded it, the son who came in, and now Abby, who runs it today, all in the same family. And the interesting thing is they were able to capitalize in the 1950s, if you didn't know this, on how, especially on TA, trading analysis or technical analysis was essentially invented by some of the traders, some of the lead traders at Fidelity that created this whole concept of analyzing by patterns. And Fidelity, of course, has been able to analyze and understand these early movements. And if you look further into this article, it kind of shows some interesting aspects here. Because applications on Ethereum network require ETH, increased adoption of the ETH network could lead to increased price of Ether and value accrual on the Ether tokens due to supply and demand mechanics. So they're very in on this. Further into this, it says, as an increased number of Ethereum use cases creates greater demand for block space, which leads to higher fees, greater value and utility in the form of yield rewarded to validators. So we all know that. But the point being is that if you look at Fidelity's strategy, again, also filing a Bitcoin ETF, but also one of the first major institutional finance organizations that have made it easy within your money market account to go out and buy Bitcoin and Ethereum. Do they see something that is new? Because if you look at Abby Johnson, she has been one of those people that has been a forward-looking executive on crypto for a very long time. And I don't know, there's some interesting things happening here with Fidelity. Are they entering this market kind of like they did in the 1950s, where they were at the right timing of that bull market? And this could be just the same scenario, because they're looking for the next cash cow, just like anybody, especially on Wall Street. And it could be one of those things that I think is going to go forward there. All right, so we're going to get into a couple of questions here today. I know we have a poll. Let's take a look at the poll real quick. All right, here we go. How will SEC respond tomorrow? 66% are on the delay side, and then 18%. Wow, so we have 28% on approval. That's interesting. That's much higher than I anticipated. That's an interesting point. A couple of questions coming in. ETF doesn't mean anything. So, okay, I'd love to know why you guys think an ETF doesn't mean anything. Because sometimes I feel like we are in a bubble. Our research team, we're always looking at this just constantly, hundreds and hundreds of hours of research. And I'm kind of in that that bubble in the sense that I just don't know if this means we're going to see massive moves in the market. It's kind of like the Grayscale. Now it's different because it's not a legitimate, true spot ETF that's been launched. It's just the judge saying, hey, yeah, they win, that kind of things. I don't know. I'm still just questioning it for sure. A couple other questions coming. Let's see here. Atilia says, will be approved after the insiders are all in. Not going to happen this year. John Doe, Dogecoin, and Elon are, of course, going crazy over there. And, of course, Twitter just got their license now to potentially do crypto transactions in certain states. That's another factor I think that will play into this, which I think is going to be interesting, just in the fact of what X is going to do long-term in strategy. And they still have an option here, but I think it's going to be interesting. Alan says, zero chance of an ETF this year. I mean, we didn't have a lot of people. Go back to the poll. Can we go back to the poll? I want to look at how many the deny. 7%. 7%. I don't think they would deny on this particular date, because remember, there's a lot of different date sequences. They can push this down the road and possibly try to do other things legally to try to regain the situation on the Grayscale ruling. All that could be, kind of tying into it. Here we go. Can you imagine what will happen to crypto if an ETF gets denied? This would be a big one. And if you look at some of the things that are going on right now in the current markets, let me jump over here to the charts real quick, and we'll take a look at the 4-hour. Let's squeeze in on that because I think everybody's looking at Bitcoin bleeding off right now. Pretty much almost all those gains gained over that short period of time with the Grayscale ruling have been regressed back into the market. So what does that mean? Is this potentially giving us a little bit of insight to the fact that we're most likely going to see a push or a delay tomorrow as these dates start to come forward? Remember, this month, September, here we are, end of August, but September is going to be a big month. We've got a lot of things happening. We've got Gary Gensler going in front of Congress. We've got rulings coming from the House floor, most likely on stablecoins. And we have more dates coming at us for these ETFs. So there's a lot happening. And if you look at that over time, I mean, obviously we've seen the bleed off here on Bitcoin. Let's look at the chart right here. From that August 8th period, where are we right now? Down almost 12% on the numbers, which has been in line with our sentiment data. There's been these little spikes, but these are very short-lived. Overall, sentiment has been trending down. Yeah. All right, so looks like we just got something. Hang on just a second, guys. Let me pull up on James real quick, and let's go here. Take a look. Update. First delay order is in. Okay. All right, so this is WisdomTree. Looks like this just broke 2 minutes ago from James Seyfert. Again, this is the Bloomberg analyst. First delay order is in. This is for WisdomTree. Spot Bitcoin, as expected, delaying another 45 days. So expecting another drop shortly on. Interesting. So we're going to try to get one of the guys over from Bloomberg tomorrow on the show to break some of this down to what does this mean. So most likely we're going to continue to see some bleed off here with this push on Bitcoin. Let's see what's happening on the 1 minute. That should pretty much blow it up right there. No, not really doing much. Kind of somewhat solid. So maybe this bleed off right here. It's been a little bit down. We'll see. Anyway, so there you go, guys. Looks like it is going to get delayed. I can't imagine now. Could there be a scenario that maybe they approve Blackrock? That would be just dirty pool. That would be dirty pool for sure. All right, let's go here. XRP spot ETF incoming. I don't know about that. Only asset with legal clarity. Gary Gensler needs to retire or be fired. Yeah, for sure. I think this is all going to happen. Listen, we got a big election coming up next year, and most likely Gensler, I think, is going to probably get his walking orders for sure. Hey, listen, if you guys are not, subscribed to our Diamond Circle, make sure and jump in. It's very easy to do. You can just subscribe down there on the link below. We always leave that. If you're listening in over on the podcast side of things, what you're missing when we do these live streams is a chance to do Q&A. Sometimes we'll do charts. Sometimes we'll show sentiment data, all that kind of stuff, along with additional clips and all that good stuff that you guys miss. So make sure and come over here to the YouTube channel, hit that little bell so you can get notified. And it's really easy. If you guys want to reach me, it is out there on Twitter @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.